Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very brand new match for Movie Battleground. We got a very exciting match on our hands. We got Henry Sanchez versus Jeremy Hastings. First, we'll start with Henry. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to have my first singles match. I'm ready to show that what I did in the team tournament was not a fluke, and what happens when I have a little bit of time to prepare. So I'm ready to have some fun.
And Jeremy, how you doing?
Doing much better than I was yesterday. I was pretty bedridden yesterday, but on a positive note, it allowed me to rewatch all the movies that we were going to be debating. So I think I'm as prepared as I'm ever going to be. So I'm ready to get started.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right, and with us, because YouTube sucks sometimes, we got Subrath in this call. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's basically midnight here. So you know how I feel.
All right, and with that being said, let's get started with our very first question. What movie would have been better if the original choice of the original director had directed it?
Great start.
Yeah, thanks. We'll start with you, Henry.
All right, so when I thought about this question, I was like, all right, so what is when you look at it, you want to go about how would it be improved? So not necessarily how is a great movie just going to also be great, because that just cancels it out. So that doesn't go. So I'm looking at a movie that financially already was good, but when it comes to critical success and both fans and the critics, you want something that just needs to be improved and a little tighter. And that's why I went with Guillermo del Toro with the Hobbit trilogy, specifically the first one, obviously, because that's where it would have started. And if del Toro would have stuck with, been the original plan, it would have, the overall plan in general, the big picture would have been changed. So I went with del Toro for the Hobbit trilogy. Or the Unexpected Journey. Let's just leave it at the first one.
All right, and Jeremy.
Well, he chose one that he started off a trilogy. I went with one that was supposed to be the third part, or maybe even just halfway through a series of videos. I went with Bryan Singer for X-Men 3: The Last Stand. Now, obviously, the backstory, as many people know, Bryan Singer was supposed to do X-Men 3, and then decided to go off and do the Superman Returns movie. And then 20th Century Fox decided to bring in one Brett Ratner, whose prime resume at the time was Rush Hours 1 and 2, because, that's what we all think when we want to see an X-Men movie. We want to have an action comedy director take over a beloved franchise, much less one of the greatest sagas and stories in all of comic books, not just in Marvel, but the Phoenix Saga. And Brett Ratner came in and just made a bunch of stupid decisions, killed off a bunch of characters for no reason whatsoever. Characters were in the movie that had no point whatsoever. I mean, you look at Angel was in there for about a cup of coffee and a half, and it literally killed the franchise dead. They were forced to reboot it because of the critical failure that it was amongst fans and critics. And to me, until Deadpool came out, the X-Men trilogy and franchise never really recovered, and it's still kind of coming off the stench that was X-Men 3: The Last Stand. And it obviously couldn't have been any worse if Bryan Singer had done the final part of that X-Men trilogy, and it would have vastly improved the movie as a whole. So I went with Bryan Singer with The Last Stand.
All right, both good openings. You guys got 6 minutes for this one, so whenever you guys are ready, just speak and I'll start the clock.
So I want to start saying, first off, with the Brett Ratner and the X-Men thing, with Bryan Singer for the first two movies, he had story credits and he helped with the story. So if he would have originally directed X-Men 3, either it would have been a mess because he wouldn't have been in the story either way. So the exact story that we've gotten would have been the exact same, or he would have had to rewrite it and it would have been a completely different movie. But that's who knows how that would have going to be, because we've seen what he did with X-Men Apocalypse and he wasn't able to finish that trilogy. So we can't trust that he would have been. Obviously, he doesn't know how to finish a trilogy. He knows how to start one and he knows how to work in the middle like he did with Day of the Future Past. But I don't think we'd be able to trust that he would have been able to close out that trilogy. And since he didn't have any writing credits, either on the side and just have started it, whatever, but he didn't have any credits there, so we can't judge that. And with del Toro and the Hobbit trilogy, like it's called the trilogy, but it originally wasn't supposed to. Del Toro wanted it to be 2 movies, and that's why they didn't have him directed, because the studio didn't want it to be 2 movies only, because they wanted to be greedy and they wanted to be hungry, and it's a small 1 book book, so that's the source material. So the fact that he wanted to make it 2 movies because he wanted to grand scale and stuff still, which would have been great. So if Del Toro would have stayed on there, then that argument would have stayed that Del Toro 2 movies for The Hobbit.
Well, you brought up the fact that Singer came in and did Apocalypse, and I think that kind of proves my point. I mean, you can't just have another director come in and do a 3rd movie, because it just doesn't work. It's proven that it never works. It happened with Joel Schumacher, it happened with Brett Ratner, and it happened with Singer with the 3rd X-Men. So it kind of proves the point that it wasn't going to work. Also, you brought up the fact that Guillermo del Toro was supposed to do it. Well, it's not like they replaced him with Joe Schmo. I mean, they brought in Peter Jackson, and I don't think anybody even at the time was shedding a tear when the guy that did the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, which, by the way, every single Lord of the Rings movie was nominated for Best Picture, one of which winning one. Nobody was shedding a tear when Peter Jackson came in. Is the end result not what we wanted? Absolutely. But to me, as you pointed out, it would have been better if it was 2 movies, but unfortunately that's not what was going to happen. So we can't blame the director and Peter Jackson for a concept that was doomed to fail from the start. It was never going to work as 3 movies. It was didn't work, as it was proven. And Guillermo del Toro, you can say it was going to be improved, but how much would it have been improved? Because he was still going to be restricted by how far he was going to go in the certain point of a timeline. So do you really want Guillermo del Toro to be restricted by saying by a studio, you have to go from point A to point 1A? You cannot finish the story. You can only go from a certain point. You can only do this, 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 and this. For me personally, I don't want to have a director that has restricted freedoms. I want him to be able to do whatever
he would have had a practical, because showing with all of his movies, he's practical. He has costumes and he has set pieces and everything. Whereas in the Hobbit movie, it's all CG, mostly CG at least. So that he would have automatically made that stricter. He's proven that he can have a tight story and he can get to the point. So if they say you can only do from point A to point B, he would have brought down the scale, and he would have been real tighter with the script. And what do I got here? He makes money, so that's the thing. So it still would have been a financial. All of his movies, obviously later on too with Crimson Peak. Crimson Peak is the only movie that didn't make money since Blade 2 that had it made money. And Blade, he's proven that he can be a part of a franchise. He's proven that he can be original with Pan's Labyrinth and Pacific Rim, and with Pacific Rim as well. He's proven that he can do large scale. So if he would have gone to the second one as well, which I don't want to go on too much because I'm just arguing the first movie, he would have been able to prove that he can handle monsters and a big story as well. So Victor Del Toro, I had a guy text me Victor. So Guillermo del Toro has proven that he would have been able to handle a franchise. He would have made it tighter in script. It would have been 2 movies, not 3, and it would have been more practical. And then with the Bryan Singer thing, like you said, yes, you say my argument saying that the 3rd wouldn't have worked, but Bryan Singer could handle the 3rd trilogy and the 3rd X-Men of the future, and he was a part of 2 of those 3. So in the original X-Men, he did the first 2 and he did good, but he's proven that when he comes into the back end, he wouldn't have been able to do it. And since he wasn't involved in the writing credit, then that means he still would have been a back end replacement. So he either wouldn't have had writing credit or he wouldn't have had as much writing. So that story would have been just still as bad. Those characters would have been killed off.
You can't say that though, because when you look at the decisions that Brett Ratner made, I mean, all just the directorial problems that was wrong with that movie. Killing off, Cyclops 5 minutes into the movie. We don't have any explanation as to what happens. We're just to assume that he's dead until 10 minutes afterwards. So he's just killed off as a freaking afterthought, which was freaking wasted. You cannot tell me that Bryan Singer
story. It brings emotion, it brings heart, and then that
he would not have killed off Cyclops like that, and you know that. Xavier dying made no sense whatsoever.
That's the reason that Jean Grey goes all crazy in Dark Phoenix, because she has that death, and then that builds up into Logan even later on of all that carries over to the prequels. And I mean the Logan movies having to deal with Jean Grey's death. So I mean it works and it's beautiful, and it made the movie itself as a whole wasn't great, but it builds art, it builds storylines, and it builds moments that carry over and at least bleeds over. Whereas the Hobbit trilogy, it's extended, it's way too much, and it needed to be tighter. So your movie did just
X-Men
enough.
3 was so bad. Days of Future Past was literally done to erase that movie. They wanted nothing to do with Brett Ratner in that movie anymore. And you talked about the financial problems. But X-Men 3, until Deadpool came out, was the highest grossing movie of all the X-Men movies, and they went downhill because of the failure that X-Men The Last Stand. Not a single X-Men movie until Deadpool got as much money domestically until The Last Stand, which means the X-Men franchise is still suffering from that. Deadpool, which is about as far away from the X-Men movies as the purest X-Men, because it's hard R and all that, and it's always going to be that. The X-Men movies themselves, from the villains, for the characters, and everything, has still not recovered from the last stand.
You still had
proven
Magneto, you still had Professor X, you still had Logan, you still had all the pieces there that make it a watchable movie. And my movie, they're super long. You don't want to watch those. You watch bits and pieces of the Hobbit trilogy, and the first one, you see the buildup, you see Bilbo, you see Gandalf, and you see Smaug. But that's really all you really care about with that trilogy. With yours, you can watch the movie throughout because they're not that long. You still have Logan, Wolverine killing people. You still have Professor X being charming and doing all his mind stuff, was awesome. And you still have Magneto, kind of tendering that line of being good and evil, and that relationship between him and Charles Xavier. So you still have all the foundations of a good X-Men story. So the big picture and the execution of it might not have been as great, but it's still a watchable movie. It's not that bad when you still go on lists. It's not the bottom 3 Marvel movies even. So it's just the fact that it's not even at the bottom means that it's still a serviceable story. And who knows that Bryan Singer would have been able to redo everything, and all that stuff would have gone back. And if it wasn't for X-Men Last Stand, we wouldn't have had Days of Future Past, because that's what made that story so great, because it went back. And because the Days of Future Past, the story is so changed from its source material, that proves that without X-Men Last Stand, we wouldn't have had that story as good as we got it. So you should be thankful that we got that.
If you say so.
All right, that is time. All right, both great so far. You guys got your closings. So, Henry, I know you said some stuff already, but you can go ahead and continue, unless you don't felt like you said enough.
No, I'll just do a quick closing argument. So what we got with Guillermo del Toro, we'd have more practical effects. We'd have costumes. Overall, it would look better. We'd have a tighter story. He's shown that he can prove that he can handle CG. He's proven that he can make money, so the studio shouldn't have worried about being so greedy and making 3 movies and the 2, which would have automatically made it more critically appealing and everything. And if you look at the money for both of our movies, they both made money, so I feel like that cancels out. So I'm just not even going to touch on that anymore. But I'm just saying that Del Toro has proven that he can make money, so it wouldn't have been a failure. That's my point. He's proven that he can handle fantasy with Pan's Labyrinth and Blade. And a franchise with Blade. He's proven that he can handle large set pieces and big overall stories in Pacific Rim, which granted it was after, but he's just proven that on his resume that he can handle that. So Guillermo del Toro would have been able to make, the movies 2, not 3, which would have made everybody happy, which would have still made a lot of money, and who knows what would go on further. So that's why I think that'd be better with the X-Men. You still X-Men Last Stand. It was still a serviceable movie. It still has a lot of enjoyable parts to it. It builds up the Dark Phoenix saga, which is not as good as it could have been, but that's a really tough story to handle anyway. And I feel like they did a pretty good job bringing a tough story on screen. That it gave us a lot of depth into Wolverine and Logan's character with the death of Jean Grey. It built up the anger and the fight in Jean Grey with killing off Cyclops, and we still had characters like Magneto and Professor Xavier that just as characters that we love. So the fact that those characters weren't wasted means it was a decent send off to a trilogy, and it's proven that the 3rd movie in any franchise and trilogy is a hard one to finish off anyway. So I think that it did a fair enough job, and it gets more flack than it should. It's not a terrible movie, but it's by no means great. So we got an okay, enjoyable movie.
All right.
Okay,
and,
but let's not act.
right.
Yeah, let's not act like the Hobbit movies are terrible either. They were underwhelming, but they didn't suck. Anybody that says they sucked, it's just they don't know what they're talking about. The problem with the X-Men, the 3rd one, is everything was wrong. You said that it's a serviceable movie, but let's look at all the characters that were wrong with that movie. Angel, as I said, completely wasted. No point even being in the movie. Beast was the greatest character in the whole movie, and he's like the 10th most important character in the movie. Mystique, wasted. Juggernaut is an Irish drunk, saying that he's got to take a leak the entire movie. Kitty, completely wasted. Iceman, wasted. It's like none of these characters had any point and purpose whatsoever other than just to build up to some little battle on an island in the middle of a bay that had absolutely no stakes whatsoever. If they all destroyed each other, it's like, who cares? It's like the rest of humanity will just go on, continue on. No one else will give 2 shits whatsoever. It's like great stakes, but in all honesty, it really didn't. It was just a mediocre battle that had nothing of value whatsoever, and a bunch of characters died, and it literally killed the franchise. We don't know if that was going to be the last movie in that franchise. They very well could have made more, but we will never know, because after all the major characters that they killed, after all the side characters that they killed, it forced 20th Century Fox to reboot the franchise completely, and the franchise has never recovered.
Okay. Great argument by both people. I think we could both agree, or at least I could agree, that I would like to see both of these movies directed by the directors that you chose. It was very close and pretty much back and forth the whole time, because Henry would say something to Jeremy, and Jeremy would defend it really well, and vice versa. So that was real good. It ultimately came down. There was one thing that said that ultimately kind of swayed me to one side, and it was Henry said that without X-Men: The Last Stand, we would not have gotten Days of Future Past. And he also said, brought up the fact that, he did direct Apocalypse. So, and that wasn't the greatest movie. So there was also that. So I will give the point to Henry for this one. So Henry goes up 1-0.
All righty. Thank you very much.
Okay. On to our second question. What is the best movie starring either of the Franco brothers? That'd be James or Dave. And we're going to start with Jeremy for this one.
Well, it's ironic that we were talking about trilogies, because my best movie featuring one of the Francos is the first movie of now one considered one of the best movie trilogies of all time. I went with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which of course is James. Obviously, to be considered one of the best franchises ever, every single movie has got to be great, and Rise of the Planet of the Apes was no exception. James did an absolutely phenomenal job with his performance. When you talk about all the great characters that came out of this, with the portrayal of James' character, with Caesar, and the thing about the movie that was so great is that, being that it took place in San Francisco, as almost 80% of movies nowadays seem to take place in, it felt real, which is kind of weird for a science fiction kind of movie. Everything that you looked at when you saw that, the cinematography was great, that it looked believable. It looked absolutely real. Everything that you saw that you believed, the character development between all these characters felt real and fluid, and the chemistry of every single character was absolutely phenomenal, and it kicked off an unbelievable trilogy that we saw that was concluded this year. So, yeah, my choice is Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
All right, and Henry.
So when I think of a a Franco brother movie, I think of James Franco and his breakout performance as a serious actor. And this is a movie that proved that James Franco can be serious. He's not just the stoner in Pineapple Express. He can actually handle a movie. He can be respectful to a story, which is phenomenal, since this is based on a true story. And I chose 127 Hours. This is a movie that was nominated for Best Picture, and James Franco actually got nominated for Best Actor, which is important. It's based on a true story. It handled the story of the unfortunate circumstance for a real life person really respectfully. It's gritty, and it still has the tension, so it's cinematically pleasing. It's quick. It's not that long. It doesn't drag on. It doesn't get to the point. It has emotion, and it has everything. And Danny Boyle directed it. He directed the crap out of it. Unfortunately, he didn't get a Best Director nominee, which is unfortunate, especially given that the rest of the movie was Oscar nominated for a lot of stuff. But the fact that Danny Boyle went on to do Steve Jobs after, proving that this wasn't a one-hit wonder, and he definitely didn't have that gap for a reason. He just takes his time, and he makes stories that he knows that he can handle. So 127 Hours, the best James Franco movie.
All right, for this round, you're gonna get 5 minutes. So whenever you guys want to start talking.
Well, I will say this. I mean, I rewatched 127 Hours yesterday, and I didn't. The one problem that I had with the movie, and it was something that I didn't really pick up the first time I saw it. To me, it was too montagey. I mean, if you look at all the clips, it would be 3 minutes of an actual film and then 5 minutes montage. 3 minutes of film, 5 minute montage. I mean, it had so much montage in it, it almost put Suicide Squad to shame. After all of it, it was about 45 minutes of a film, and it was a little too one-dimensional for me. And for me, I mean, I don't want to hate on the movie, because I did like the movie, but to me, it didn't spend enough of the point of it being real. And that was kind of the thing that kind of hurt it, because it's based on a true story. It didn't come off as real enough because it was focusing too much on montage and all that other stuff. Whereas Rise of the Planet of the Apes, even though being a science fiction movie, felt more real because they illustrated all of these real life environments and real life situations that made you believe that it was, you know, catastrophe happening in San Francisco. Whereas they didn't pinpoint enough of bestie of Aaron Ralston and all this. It was just, to me, it was just too flashbacky, and it kind of took the experience out of it for me. I wanted them to focus more on everything that was happening with him instead of him just focusing on, oh, my phone's ringing. I'm not going to answer it though. And I'm drowning in the river, and I'm going to get away, and I'm going to run away. I'm going to knock on my door. Oh, but my wife's not going to answer the door, and I'm right back where I was.
All right. So with that being said, I feel like Rise of the Planet of the Apes, it's not even the best movie in its trilogy, and it's widely received as the third worst movie, or the third best. And I'll say third best and not the worst because it is still a good movie. But with that being said, James Franco is obviously overshadowed by Andy Serkis as Caesar, and that's a building character. He's a baby half the time, and once you get to the second half of the movie, James Franco's character is an afterthought. He just is there for emotional purposes, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And it's proven that in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, you only get one reference to James Franco's character, and that's a picture. So it's proven that he didn't do a good enough job to force himself into the sequel, and it's proven in movie history that even if a character is not written to be either in the most of the movie or in a franchise, that if they do a good enough job, that they'll come back for the sequel and they'll put him in there just for audience sake and the fact he's so loved. So it's proven that he was overshadowed by Andy Serkis. He wasn't able to handle a franchise. And what you're saying about the montage for 127 hours, maybe that is the reason Danny Boyle wasn't nominated for Best Director, and that's okay. But James Franco was nominated. He proved that he can handle this story. It was thrilling. It was tense. It was emotional. You see those tears. The scene where let's just spoiler, like Deadpool, spoiler for 127 hours, that scene. So it has, yeah, exactly. It does everything it needs to do. It handles with respect. At no point where he's like, wow, I can't believe that they did it that way, because that's just so disrespectful of the story. So the story is there. That's all that matters, because anytime it's based on true story, you want a true story. And you said the montages, that's fine. Sometimes you have to make it, you have to make decisions to make it a little more appealing on screen. And the fact that it was widely acclaimed, it was nominated for Best Picture. It's proven that it was overall as a story and as a movie, it's handled okay. And the montage, if sometimes that's not going to hit for everybody, and that's fine. But James Franco brings it as A game. He's proven that. I'm just throwing this out there. If there was 128 hours, they probably would have brought him on because he did so great. But he wasn't even brought on for the rest of the trilogy, and he wasn't even talked about in the third one. So it's proven that his character is obsolete. It was just there for the story. Who cares about him? It's not even the best of its trilogy. It's not even the second best of the trilogy. So
James Franco was only in the first one. The question was, what was the best movie that he was in? And
exactly. So the fact that he was
the only one that's in it, movie, it doesn't matter about those two.
Yeah, but how are you going to say that it's the best James Franco movie? It's not even the best of its own franchise. That's my point. So that automatically knocks it down.
So it doesn't matter. Yeah. The other two don't matter.
If he was in the other two, he probably would have brought the movie down because he wasn't as good, and they would have focused on him more. The point is Caesar. So the fact that James Franco is an obsolete point of that movie, whereas in James Franco in 127 Hours, he's the main. He's pretty much the only character in that movie, and that's what's important. The fact that he can handle a movie by himself and be nominated for Best Picture. You have movies like Buried, where Ryan Reynolds, he's great, but he's proven that a movie where it's just him still isn't, that a movie like that's not going to be nominated for Best Picture. Whereas 127 Hours, he brought it. He was nominated for Best Actor. It's the only time that he's ever been nominated for Best Actor, if I'm correct. So the fact that it's proven that it's his best performance, his best movie, and then your movie, it's not even the best of its trilogy, let alone the best James Franco movie. So.
We still got like 30 seconds.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm good for closing. If you got anything open you want to say, I talked.
Well, I mean, you kept wailing on the other two Apes movies, and again, he wasn't in the other two, so I think bringing up that over and over again, I think it's kind of pointless. So to me, Apes just had the cinematography was better, the special effects, put 127 Hours to shame, and because you can't say they didn't try to do special effects, because again, they tried to do all these montages, all these weird, funky special effects and all that, and so. To me, Rise of the Planet of the Apes is clearly the better film as a whole because it set up everything that followed with all the Planet of the Apes movies, and they progressively got better. And that's because that first movie in the Planet of the Apes planted the seeds that caused everything to grow and made everything become what it was. And that's why it's become one of the most beloved trilogies ever.
All right, that was your closing?
That was just the end of the open round.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. All right, Jeremy, you could talk again because it's your turn for the closing.
Well, I mean, he brought up the fact that my character was kind of irrelevant in the first movie because they didn't bring him back. But without James Franco's performance, you don't have the evolution of Caesar's character, and you don't have any of the evolution of all the characters that come in the future movies. So for him saying that the character is irrelevant, without his character, none of the other stuff is as good as it is because Caesar's character doesn't evolve into the character into the other movies without his performance. That's what makes that character performance great. And, he brought up the fact, 127 hours based on a true story and all that. But to me, the fact that the movie doesn't focus enough on the true story and it's focusing too much on other stuff, to me, hurts the movie as a whole. And I'm not saying the movie is bad, but to me, it was not as good of a movie as it could have been based on a true story. It was a very emotional story. It affected many people because it's a very inspiring story. But to me, they don't focus enough on the stuff that's inspiring and just focus on the director and special effects and montages and all that. So to me, the fact that Rise of the Planet of the Apes is able to blend all of these genres and all these special effects and cinematography and characters all together and make a great and wonderful movie that kicks off a great franchise and a trilogy, to me, is why I think Rise of the Planet of the Apes is the better movie.
Okay, and Henry.
All right, so I just want to touch on this real quick. I wasn't saying that it was important that that he was only a part of the first movie. And he wasn't part of the other movies. And the point is, his character wasn't good enough to force himself into the other movies, which is proven cinematically. If a performance or a character is good enough, that they'll be in other movies, even if it wasn't the original plan. And the fact that he wasn't even referenced means that emotional seed that you're talking about, it wasn't cared about. So so that could have been anybody. That was my point. It was a serviceable job. He did okay, but anybody could have made that performance. You talk to a CGI ape, and you do what you can. So it wasn't that great. Nobody really could have done what James Franco did in that movie because it's so subdued. It's so underplayed as far as the tension and the fear. He screamed a few times, but I mean, what do you expect when you're stuck in a place like that? You're going to scream for help. You're going to scream when you're doing anything to yourself, mutilation or anything like that. Something that's going to happen. Like I said, Danny Boyle directed this movie right after Slumdog Millionaire, and then he did Steve Jobs after. So proven that it wasn't just he wasn't banking on the success of Slumdog Millionaire and being a Best Picture winner. It was proven that he was able to follow it up as well with Steve Jobs. So you're judging his directorial decisions with the montages. That's fine, but it's proven that he still was able to bring a story that we want, and it was a lot of fun. And James Franco, like I said, that movie wasn't even the best of its trilogy, let alone the best James Franco movie. So.
All right. Honestly, it's very, very close. But before I make a final verdict, I'm actually going to ask Subrath on his thoughts on this argument.
Maybe not.
Okay. Subrath, are you here or not? Or
Nope.
All right. I guess. All right. Honestly, this is very close. All right. I do have a decision. I just wanted to hear Subrath's thoughts. But it was honestly a lot. Like it's honestly like very, very close. There was one point that was brought up by Jeremy that because Henry did knock Planet of the Apes a lot, and he kept on saying, if James Franco was truly that good, he would have returned for the other ones. And, Jeremy said, well, he wasn't really needed for the other ones. And what I really like what Jeremy said is that without James Franco, the relationship between Caesar, like the relationship between Caesar and James Franco's character was just so good. It really built on Caesar and really made him truly great throughout the whole franchise. So I'm going to give Jeremy the point for this one.
All right, just throw this out there. Did you remember that I said that anybody could have done that, and it wasn't, that relationship was forgotten? That's all right. It's all right.
Yeah.
All right, I guess whatever.
All right. Question number 3: What movie released this year has the most potential to win Best Picture? And we're going to start with Henry.
All right, so when you think of a movie with Best Picture, there's like a formula. And when we're not, this isn't what we want to win Best Picture. This is a movie that we think has the most realistic chance. And out of these two movies, there's just a clear winner. And I'm going to tell you why. when you think of war movies, you think of Best Picture right out the gate, as long as they're done well and critically acclaimed. You think of making money, that's what this movie did. When you think of having a director who at the helm of it, that's important for both cinema and both the Oscars as well. That's important. So you got all these check marks, and the movie I'm picking is Dunkirk, based on a true story, based on a story that we haven't seen, so it's not too repetitive. It's it's a war movie, World War II, made a lot of money, checks all the boxes. Christopher Nolan, he was nominated for, he wasn't nominated, but Inception was nominated for Best Picture, and a lot of people, feel that The Dark Knight should have been. So he's proven that he can bring movies to the table that the Oscars love. So all the boxes are checked. Dunkirk, without a doubt, the best movie that is going to win, not the movie that we want to win or we think should win. So the one that is going to win, which is an important part of this argument.
Okay, and Jeremy.
Well, honestly, there's not really a whole lot of movies that have come out this year that I think are worthy top contenders for Best Picture. I think there's only really been three. It's Dunkirk, Baby Driver, and the one that I picked so far, and that is Logan. And I know a lot of people are going to think, oh, it's a comic book movie. There's no way in hell that's going to win. Dark Knight, case in point. But the thing about Logan is that this movie is just so much different from all the other comic book movies. I mean, it spans so many different genres and has so many great character performances, from Logan, from Charles Xavier, to Daphne Keane, and all these great performances that make this movie great, that when you're watching the movie on the big screen or on your flat screen or whatever, it doesn't feel like a comic book movie. If you had no notoriety of any of those characters, you would not know that it was based on a comic book story or a comic book in general, because there are just so many genres that are connected to this. It's a great drama story, it's great action, it's great adventure, you've got some horror elements in there too. So to me, it's just a beautiful blend of all these different concoctions of genres that come back and just make it a great overall story that many people think not only is the best comic book movie of the year, but is the best movie of the year in general. Whether that makes it the top contender at the Oscars or not, to me, is irrelevant. But to me, the thing that you have to base on the top contender for Best Picture is what has been the overall best movie so far. And to me, hands down, it's been Logan.
Okay, both great movies that I think we could both say that they both deserve Best Picture. But 5 minutes, whenever you guys want to start.
So like I said, the question is what movie is going to win Best Picture, not what we want to win. And don't get me wrong, it has a solid chance of being nominated, and that's fine. Just like The Dark Knight had a solid chance of being nominated, didn't make it, and it's the reason that the Oscars got bumped up from 5 to up to 10. So I'm not disputing that it could get nominated, but there's no chance in hell that is going to win, and that's just based on unfortunate for all of us. That's just based on the track record of the Oscars. They only like white movies, and they only like based on a true story movies for the most part. So if there's an option to choose both of those, then that's what you're going to get, and that's unfortunate, but that's the question. What is going to win? You have Christopher Nolan, critically acclaimed, helmed a very a total, just he's at top of the mountain for directors, especially right now. It's based on a true story, World War II. It's a war movie, so it just checks all the boxes. It made money. It came out during the summer, but because it made money, it's got all the acclaim. Everyone saw it, So there's just no question. Logan's a great movie. It's a lot of fun, and it did touch on all the other genres. So I'm not arguing that it could get nominated, but there's no chance it's going to win, and that's just unfortunate because it probably should win in a lot of people's opinions, but there's no way that it will. And Dunkirk is a better movie. They're both cinematically pleasing. They both have action. They both cover everything based on a true story. It checks all the boxes. It's just no question. Dunkirk.
Well, you brought up the fact of Nolan's resume, and we need to argue right now. Does the Academy really care about Nolan's resume? Because you said that he's made all these great movies and doesn't seem to get any notoriety whatsoever. I mean, he's only had one Best Picture nominee to my knowledge.
Yeah, but it went from Inception to Dark Knight Rises to Interstellar. It was a comic book movie, and then it was a science fiction movie. So you got to understand that those aren't the type of movies that the Oscars look for. You had Inception, which it broke the mold. It's one of the greatest movies of all time, one of the greatest science fiction movies of all time. So he's in Dark Knight, he's proven that even movies that shouldn't be even nominated were both up there. So the fact that he was able to break that was great. And then he went on and he finished a trilogy, and he did a passion project that he wanted to do in Interstellar. Now we went back to his roots, and with a more tight story. He handled it. He checks all the boxes that the Oscars want. So the two movies before it are irrelevant because he's proven that he can be nominated in Inception, and it's everyone cries out like, oh, he should have been nominated for The Dark Knight, he should have been nominated for Memento, he should have been nominated for The Prestige. So if they finally got their head out of their butts, the Oscars realized that Christopher Nolan, it can get a Best Picture movie out there, regardless of how we feel about the director, because it, the genres, he might not get nominated for director, but Best Picture, that is the question. And World War II, Dunkirk is going to win Best Picture. Not a question.
I think that still remains to be seen. I think it's going to be The Darkest Hour, personally. But to me, I mean, you have to look at the movie as a whole. Well, I'm not saying that it's definitely going to get nominated. There's no doubt about that. But the thing about Dunkirk, memorable character performance in that movie whatsoever. And Logan, you got minimum 3. You can make a case for 4. And to me, when you have all these great character performances together, I think that would heighten the chance of a Best Picture nominee, especially when you have Dunkirk, which doesn't have a single one. You can't name a single stand-up performance in that movie whatsoever. And you talked about, based on a true story and all that. But to me, we've seen World War II movies before. They don't get the notoriety that they deserve. We've seen a bunch of true stories that don't end up winning, even though they deserve it. Just because, it's World War II, it's so much blood and guts and all that. So people are hesitant to want to vote for it because of all the tragedy and all that. To me, Logan, to me, had the best performance from an actor, had the best supporting actor performance, best supporting female actress performance. To me, when you put all that stuff together, to me, there's no reason why that movie should not be the front runner as of right now. Of all the movies that have come out so far, because that's the question, what movie so far is the top contender. To me, while Dunkirk is a good movie and does a good adaptation of the World War II environment and all that, to me, just does not stand out from his other movies, and that's unfortunate because I wanted that movie to be great, and it was very good, but it was not great. Logan surpasses great. It's almost, to me, a 5-star movie, and to me, you need that notoriety. It got the buzz from the mainstream audience, got the buzz from the comic book movie fans, and to me, buzz is what gets the Academy going when it comes to a Best Picture nominee, and thus a Best Picture winner. To me, Logan got everything. It got the performances, it got the script, it got the plot, it got the buzz, it got everything. To me, Logan is slightly above Dunkirk. I'm not saying Dunkirk doesn't have a chance. I'm not saying Dunkirk's not going to win. But to me, Logan right now just has more going for it because, honestly, I think the Dunkirk buzz has kind of died off. I haven't heard a whole lot from Dunkirk over the last little while, and I think it's kind of lower down with all these other movies that are coming. I think many people are waiting to see what those movies are going to do, like Darkest Hour and all those movies, especially considering that movie's about the same time span as Dunkirk. And I think that is the movie that many people are going to focus on more.
See, you're contradicting yourself. You keep saying that Logan is going to win Best Picture, but then you say movies like The Darkest Hour, and you say that Logan, it's not. You didn't even say it was a 5-star movie. So I mean, you're contradicting yourself on that. And you say all these things about buzz. Deadpool last year got all the buzz. So many people were signing petitions and protesting, saying that Deadpool should be nominated. It didn't get that. So buzz is irrelevant at this point. And plus, that came out in March, so it has all the things against it. Dunkirk came around the right time and made the money. It's World War II. It checks all the boxes. Christopher Nolan. It's like I said. I'm not saying Logan shouldn't be nominated, but it's no chance it's going to win. And Dunkirk, if it doesn't win, then people would be surprised. It's going to win because it checks all the boxes. Christopher Nolan. And you said there's no performance that stand out. Mark Rylance did an amazing job, and they said that it doesn't care about the other characters. I think that's the point. It shows that you can have a movie that is as epic, as scale, and everything and you cared about all these characters without even knowing who they were because it's based on a true story, and that's the point. It proved the point that the story is all that matters, and its impact, and it just you just feel for what really happened. So you don't want it because you don't want a Pearl Harbor situation and worry about a triangle love situation and dive deep into the characters to where it's like, oh, now you get overboard. So I'd rather have not enough characters than a Pearl Harbor situation. So it's proved that Dunkirk, you handle the story right. You're tight. You give us an accurate depiction of what really happened. You respect the concept, and it did all that. Plus, like I said, World War II, it checked all the boxes. I keep hanging on that, but that's just what the Oscars does, and it's unfortunate because it shouldn't be like that, but it is. It's going to win Dunkirk over Logan, over every other movie, even Darkest Hours.
Okay, that's it for the main arguments. Starting with the closings. Henry, I believe you're first for the closings.
All right, so I'll make this quick because there's not much I really need to say. Dunkirk, World War II, all that. Checks all the boxes. I'll leave it at that. Christopher Nolan, he's proven that he can make movies that are critically acclaimed. All of his movies are on the IMDb's top 250 except for 2, I think. And he has 10 movies now on his resume, which it's proven that the audience loved it. All of it, I don't think any of his movies are rotten. even Interstellar, which is a movie that people don't like as much, even Dark Knight Rises that people don't like as much. More people like it than not. So he's a respected director. He's proven that he can make amazing movies. He's proven that he can be at the top of franchises like The Dark Knight, like, you know, Interstellar, which is a movie that's so grand in scale, it costs a lot of money. Studios trust him. He's proven that he can make a science fiction movie be a Best Picture nominee in Inception. He's proven that he can handle a World War II story based on a true story. Similar, this is his first true story. So he's proven that, you know, he can handle it. He wrote it, you know, him and his brother wrote it. So, I mean, he handled the story. He did everything right. And if, you know, he doesn't get nominated for Best Director, I would understand, but it is going to win for Best Picture. And Logan, it's unfortunate, it's a comic book movie. I really hope it gets nominated, but there's no chance it's going to win. There might be you have better chances of Hugh Jackman or Patrick Stewart winning Best Actor, Supporting Actor than you have Logan even being nominated, let alone winning. So Dunkirk over Logan.
Okay, and Jeremy.
Well, I mean, you kept harping on the same thing. You know, checked all the boxes. I mean, we heard that about 10,000 times. With all due respect, Henry. But to me, the thing about Dunkirk, again, there was just not a standout performance. It was not an overall as good of a movie as it could have been, which to me, if the movie was better, I think it would have a better chance. But to me, it kind of underwhelmed some people. It was not as good as many people thought it was going to be. Logan surpassed all the expectations. I mean, a lot of people thought the movie was going to be pretty crummy, and then it turned out to be this freaking masterpiece of a movie. Okay, Henry, okay. I mean, to me, you kept harping on Deadpool. You know, it should have got the notoriety, but the thing that hurt Deadpool was that they treated it like a comic book movie. They treated it from the ground up like a comic book movie. Logan did not do that. The main point that it tried to do was not act like a comic book movie. It tried to act like everything other than a comic book movie. And to me, that's the thing that helped it overall in terms of the quality, in terms of the performances, and all that. Again, I'm not harping on the fact that your movie wasn't good. It absolutely was good. I'm not saying it's not going to get nominated. It is. But to me, the best picture of the year so far is Logan. And the best picture is the one that should be the front runner to win Best Picture at the Oscars, because that's the whole point of what Best Picture at the Oscars is supposed to be, which is the best picture, not best resume, best all that. It's Best Picture, and Logan has been the best picture so far.
Okay. All right. While I'll say this, while I do like Logan and do think Logan should be Best Picture, the question was what should be Best Picture. It's what has the most potential to be Best Picture. And while I do think Jeremy gave a good argument on why Logan should be why Logan is the better movie, and why Logan is the best picture of the year so far, that was not the question, and it was what has the most potential to win Best Picture. And I think Henry said it best when, you know, so the Academy usually doesn't, you know, nominate things that or usually doesn't nominate things that are, you know, the best. It's very rare that it happens. And, you know, that, you know, Dunkirk has, you know, he did say it a million times in this match, but, you know, it made so much sense to me that, you know, it checks all the boxes on what the Academy likes and what the Academy looks for in a Best Picture. And because of that, I'm going to give the point to Henry.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I knew I didn't have a chance in hell winning that argument. I knew that wasn't going to happen.
You did a great job. I'm not going to lie. If you win against anybody else, you probably had a really good chance of winning that. It's just, you know.
It was a good tactic. Just beat that point in Andrew's head enough times until it finally got through.
Yeah, it was annoying, but that's honestly the only argument I can have for that.
It was a really good point, and trust me, Logan is my favorite movie of the year so far. And as much as I would love it to see win Best Picture, I think Dunkirk is just personally, and Henry argued.
Yeah, if I would have argued for any other movie, that point wouldn't have been there. But you know, it literally does. It checks all the boxes, so I had to harp on that.
It legitimately does, and you know,
and it's unfortunate. I don't think it should win. I don't even think it's in my top 10 of the year. But as soon as I heard that question, I'm like, oh, Dunkirk. That's the easiest one to argue.
Because you know, how many times have there's been a Best Picture winner that just hasn't been on my top 10. You know.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I will say that if he ends up winning with that movie, which probably isn't even in his top 5, that's going to be a tragedy. He deserves a whole much more than that.
Oh, I love Dunkirk. Dunkirk is my second favorite movie of the year so far, but Logan's number 1. But anyway, we're going to our fourth question in the main round, and that is the best Coen Brothers movie. And we are going to start with Jeremy for this one.
Okay, I think this one's pretty straightforward. To me, it's an obvious choice. I went with Fargo. Obviously, this was one of the best movies that came out in 1996. Was highly acclaimed by everybody. Siskel and Ebert said it was their best movie in '96. Was nominated for 5 Oscars, winning 2, including Best Actress with Frances McDormand, and Best Original Screenplay, I believe. Was nominated for 3 others, including Best Picture and Best Director. It was by far their most satisfying movie. Again, based on a true story. We've been harping about that quite a bit. Involved the stories about a 1987 story about a black male murder story up in Minnesota, or North Dakota. Excuse me. Yeah, geography, yeah, at its best. Yeah, it just harped on all these great character performances from William H. Macy to Frances McDormand. Again, she won an Oscar for it. It was Rotten Tomato score is in the mid-90s. It's just a fantastic movie from the ground up. There's not a single problem with that movie. It flows so wonderful. It's like an hour 45 minutes. It doesn't feel like it drags one bit. It is an absolutely great movie from start to finish. To me, it's Fargo, no question about it.
Okay, and Henry.
All right, so when you think of the Coen brothers, there's going back to this checking off the boxes concept. So when you think of the Coen brothers, you think of quirky, you think of good writing, you think of great characters, you think of funny, you think of satirical and everything. So that's why neither of us chose No Country for Old Men, because it might be one of the better movies that they made, but when the question is the best Coen brothers movie, it doesn't have their style as much. So I respect that neither of us chose that. I just want to throw that out in the gate. So if anyone's comment below why we did pick that, that's why. So when we picked the question, was the best Coen brothers movie? So when you think of that, I'm going with The Big Lebowski. You have The Dude, which is arguably the best character that they've ever written. He has festivals for people that go there, dress up like the Dude, Big Lebowski Fest. I think that's what it's called or whatever, but because it's not for me, but so many people love it. It is a character that 20 years later, because it came out in 1997, I think. 20 years later, it's 98 actually. Yeah, but anyway, in that range, it came out so long ago, and people still love that character. People want to see. They wish that we'd have a sequel to that, and we're actually getting a Jesus Quintana spin-off movie because of how acclaimed that movie is. So at the time, it's not as received. It didn't make as much money as it should have. It's not as critically acclaimed. It didn't get any Oscar awards, but it's the type of movie that came out before its time, and the fact that it's beloved so much, and it shouldn't be considered this, but it's technically considered a cult classic because of it came out before its time. If this movie came out within the last 10 years, it would probably been nominated for Best Picture, and I'm gonna have that or not. There's a chance just because supporting the Grand Budapest Hotel. It's proven that a movie like that is quirky, over the top, swears so much, so that the language you can't say that, and it's over the top. It's quirky, it's fun, so it's proven that it's similar to Grand Budapest Hotel and that thing. So it'd be more acclaimed, and that's my point. That if it came out today, then it would be, and it has a larger impact on everybody. The Dude, the fact that people want spin-offs or sequels to that movie. Nobody's talking about Fargo. Nobody's talking about those performances anymore. Nobody, all that stuff. It's a forgotten movie. It's a great movie, and both these movies are great, but it's not the best Coen brothers movie when you think of impact and social, how it involves everybody. You think of more people say that the TV show is better than the Fargo movie, and more people want to see additional things from The Big Lebowski because of how important that is. So Big Lebowski over Fargo, best Coen brothers movie.
Okay, both great movies, and once again, 5 minutes for the main argument. Whenever you guys wanna start.
Well, you are right when you said the movie was ahead of its time. In fact, it was about ahead of its time about 5 years, because it was called Dude, Where's My Car? Because that's pretty much the entire premise of Dude, Where's My Car? Only it's more PG. But that's beside the point. You talked about the fact that, yes, your movie had no Oscar awards. Not only did it not have any awards, it didn't even have any noms. I mean, it got no recognition from anybody. Rotten Tomatoes score for mine is higher. I think it's like mid-90s compared to yours, to like in the lower 80s. I think it's like 80, 81%. Higher average rating my movie has. Mine's about 8.5, 8.6 compared to yours is in like 7, low 7s. So to me, mine is just a more embraced film. It is a better film overall. Again, it got all the accolades. It had all the praise from not just critically acclaimed from the highest on up all the way down. It was serviceable to the fans. It was faithful enough to the story that everybody believed it. It was wonderful. It was great performances, great acting, great characters, great premise. And Coen Brothers took something that should have been so tragic and still somehow managed to put humor in the movie, put excitement in the movie, that you still fell in love with the character, even though that character was a dick and you were supposed to hate his guts out. You still somehow had some kind of charm with the character. which to me is kind of freaky, but it still actually worked. With Big Lebowski, yeah, you felt for the characters, but you felt for them in a weird kind of way. You know, you just talk about all the scenes where, yeah, the guy pissed on my rug, and they just make a joke out of that for about 30 minutes. And then you do all this other stuff, and it's just point A, point here, and then we kind of reference back to this point. And to me, Big Lebowski is kind of a cluster. It's a funny cluster, but it's kind of a cluster, kind of like Dude, Where's My Car was. And to me, Fargo, it hit all the points that it needed to. Had great, sound bites, things that are still brought up even to this day. Performances that we still remember, obviously with Frances McDormand, won her that Oscar. It was just great performances in general in a movie that, honestly, I don't know how it worked, but it did work because it's a story that they put so much passion and love into, that this story that is supposed to be so tragic and so horrifying, that you still embrace it and love it, and you still want to watch it all the time. And so, to me, that's what makes it stand out so much more than Big Lebowski. Is Big Lebowski
so
fun?
the reason that you're wrong for this is the fact that you don't even know that it's not based on a true story. That's a lie. They just made that to make the story seem more real, and that's the only reason.
They changed the names, but it's still based on the same story.
No, it is not. If it is not based on a true story, it's a fabricated story. They say that it's based on a true story to make it more stand out to characters, and that's why it's critically acclaimed. The fact that they did that, they pulled the rug under us. Ironically speaking, probably the Dude's rug. They pulled the rug under us, and they made that lie. They fabricated that story. It's not based on a true story at all. It is all fake. Even the TV show, all of it's fake. It's the point. The point was that they were able to make a story they say is based on a true story to make it more real because of how over the top and all that stuff, and the fact that we want to. They make fun. It's kind of offensive how they do the accents. It's over the top, and yeah, that's the only reason it's comedy, because it's so over the top. It's like being a bully. You're making fun of people and how the way they talk. It doesn't seem natural. It doesn't seem real. It's it's just so over the top. It's disrespectful. It's kind of annoying. It doesn't make it as watchable. When you have 45 minutes of throughout an hour and 30 movie, that's pretty annoying. When you have a bunch of times of saying shut the fuck up, Donnie, that's funny because you have a character that you love, and the way that they handled it towards the end with how you got everything that happened with Donnie, it's proven that you can tell a character shut the fuck up, Donnie, for the first 45 minutes of movie, and then if we lose him, you still cry and you still have everything, and you have funny moments, you have real characters, you have Julianne Moore, who's just stole the show, not stole the show because nobody can steal a show from the Dude and Walter, but she came out, she held her own. That story is awesome, how they tied everything together. You have characters like Big Lebowski and Walter, that relationship, probably one of the best friendships on You Have Camera. You have a movie that makes you actually be interested in bowling. It makes people want to go bowling. Like I want to bowl like the Dude. You got characters like Jesus Quintana, where they say he's a pederast, and I don't want to talk about that too much because that's a touchy subject right now. But the fact that you have a character that's so interesting, even though he's a terrible character, so it's proven that the Coen brothers can write terrible characters, and it's a story that has no point. And the fact that it's a journey that has no point, and it's fun and it's memorable, and you talk about it to this day, where nobody talks about Fargo. And like I said, it's been overshadowed by the TV show now. And the fact that everyone's finally gotten over the hype of that it's not really a true story, and it's like, oh yeah, it is a little offensive. The performances are great, but the side characters are offensive. It's annoying, and yeah, it's not as good. The ending is so uncinematic because she just shoots them and all that stuff, and you build it up, and yeah, it's not as good. Steve Buscemi is fine. He's just a criminal, and it's pretty much playing the same character they played in Reservoir Dogs, so it doesn't bring anything new. Frances McDormand is great, but she's wilding around. You have this super weird story element in the movie with the Asian guy, I can't think of his name right now, Mike something, and that whole weird thing. If you take that, it's about a 10-minute scene in the movie that's only an hour and 45 minutes long. It's just like, holy, that is a waste. It made no sense. It didn't serve any purpose for the movie, and you don't have any elements like that in The Big Lebowski. And The Big Lebowski, like I said, is a story that makes no sense, but the fact that you have nothing that takes you out of the movie, you enjoy it for an hour and a half, and you love it. You laugh your ass off. You get emotional at the end. You have some fun action with some shootouts. You have Take the Ringer. It has all the elements that you need in a movie, let alone a Coen Brothers movie. It's quirky, it's funny, it's quickly written. It's as far as like how bam bam bam. It's it doesn't drag. It has all the elements, and like you said, it came out before its time. And the Dude, Where My Car argument, if anything, that helps my argument. It got ripped off because the story is so awesome, and people want to movies want to be like the Dude and Walter. People want to be like the Dude and Walter. They dress up, and if it came around this time, it would be more critically acclaimed. The fact that it has a lower rating is because they take into account all the initial ratings it got. Just like Fight Club, it's only like 80% because it doesn't adjust. It doesn't adjust for inflation like a box office. It still sticks with the original critics at the time, and that's unfortunate because if everyone redid their ratings, it would be in the high 90s, not just in the low 90s, because of just it's a fun time. And if that's all you want to say, that's fine. But when you think of Coen Brothers movie, you think of fun, quick, witty, charming. It has all those elements. Whereas Fargo, it has a couple scenes that take you out of it. It's slowly paced for an hour. It feels like it's like 2.20. It feels a little longer. It's not as quick, and the story is fun, but it's the hype for based on a true story, quote unquote, is done, and nobody cares about it anymore.
Okay, good argument. We're going to start with the closings, starting with Jeremy.
Well, in defense of that one scene that he brought up, in the diner, to me, I think it didn't take away anything from it, because to me, it added to the realism of that story, because you got to have those weird, quirky things to happen in real life, because they do happen in real life. You have this, interaction with somebody that you haven't met for 10 years, and then you have this weird, awkward conversation. We all had conversations like that too. To throw that in there, yes, was it weird? A little bit, but it added to the realism, because again, that's what it was supposed to be based on. It was supposed to be based on a true story, if Henry wants to call it that. But again, we're basing this on what is the best movie. To me, it's not only based on what gave you the most enjoyment. You also have to put success and accolades into it as well. Both of them are probably even keel when it comes to people liking them. But then the tiebreaker, to me, you have to give it to Fargo, because based on the Oscar noms, it also got 3 Golden Globe nominations, winning one, I believe. Didn't bring that up before. So it not only got all the Oscar accolades, it got the Golden Globe accolades too. Again, the Big Lebowski, as great as the movie is, it did not get any accolades whatsoever. And you'd say it was because it was ahead of its time. Well, movies that are usually ahead of their time usually get more praise for being ahead of their time, and usually get accolades of that sort. And again, it didn't get any wins, any nominations whatsoever. Fargo got all that and then some. Again, it's higher pace in everything. I believe it made more money than Big Lebowski. It's higher average rating, higher Rotten Tomatoes percentage, more accolades, better overall movie overall in the genre.
Okay, and Henry.
All right, so you say that if it's pretty even kill and the tiebreaker is accolades, then why does nobody talk about Frances McDormand's performance as one of the greatest of all time for any spectrum? Same thing with like William H. Macy, or same thing with what's his name? Oh my God, Steve Buscemi. So you don't talk about those performances or those characters anymore. Where the Big Lebowski, you talk about those performances, you talk about those characters. You get it. You're getting a Jesus Quintana spinoff. You got everyone dressed up like the dude, want to be like the dude and Walter for Halloween, and that's fun. For an R-rated comedy that kids want to dress up like that and people know it's fun. It makes bowling feel relevant. It brings everything to the table. And you say that if it's because it's ahead of the time, it should have got nominated, or it should have got recognition based on that. It's hit or miss. It's either you're going to get it, you should have gotten it because it's ahead of the time and you're getting the praise for it, or it doesn't get noticed until later. And that was the case in this situation. It doesn't get noticed. So like I said, similar to the Grand Budapest Hotel, if it would have came out within the last 5-10 years, it would have gotten a lot of recognition. Even if it was just performances, the dude Jeff Bridges would have gotten nominated. He would have gotten the recognition, but it came out for his time, and whatever. At that point, the 90s, that's not how they went. They didn't take risk. So it would have gotten that recognition. It's still beloved. So the people still talk about The Big Lebowski as one of the greatest comedies of all time. People don't talk about Fargo as one of the greatest crime movies of all time. So the fact that it's more memorable on that end means, and if all of them check the boxes for Coen Brothers movies, so at that point you got to think of the most memorable for the people and the critics, and the people talk about The Big Lebowski more often than they talk about Fargo. So that cancels out everything. So Big Lebowski is the greatest Coen Brothers movie.
Okay.
That was a good one. That was a
good one. I just need a second to collect my thoughts.
That was a good one.
If Subrath is here,
I'll message him. Tell him to bring his input if he's been listening.
Yeah. Because I actually do want to. Okay. Well, what do you have to say about this thought? What are your thoughts about this fight?
I mean, it was very close between two of them. I mean, if I have to pick, I mean, not to influence your, I mean, whoever won this point, according to you, Andrew, but for me, it will be Henry for this one.
Oh, okay. The one, like it was honestly very close. I think the one point that was brought up that really sticks out to me is that Henry said that, not even that The Big Lebowski is more remembered, it's that Fargo isn't as talked about nowadays. And the one point that I really like that Henry said is that, people talk more about the TV show nowadays, and that the TV show overshadows the movie, and that, people are always talking about, The Big Lebowski. And the one point also that I really like that Henry brought up is that, yes, it didn't get the best reviews for the time, but he did compare it to, both to Fight Club and the Grand Budapest Hotel. Fight Club in the respect where, both movies were, movies that, weren't, acclaimed for the time just because of the time it came out, and he compared it to the Grand Budapest Hotel. And I really like that because he said if it came out, around when the Grand Budapest Hotel came out, it probably would have gotten, nominations for, Jeff Bridges, John Goodman, all the nominations that, Fargo got. So I will give the point to Henry.
I was nervous. That was a good one. That was a good
one. Was a good one.
If you would have gotten
that, I would make the case though if it came out 10 years later, they would say, "Oh wait, it's just a Dude, Where's My Car" cop out.
Well, we wouldn't have Dude, Where's My Car without Big Lebowski, and I mentioned that. So yeah,
I don't know. There's been some freaky movies. They would come out with anything by then.
That was a good one though. I'm more angry that I lost the 127 hours one. If I would have lost that one, I would have shook your hand. That was a really good one.
It was a good one. All right, we're going to the speed round now, where hold on, let me just pull out my timer. So that is all good. Okay. Your first speed round question. If Henry gets this one, he wins. The game's over. But if not, keeps on going. Jeremy, you just need all three to win. Henry, you just need one.
Okay.
So the first speed round question is: what is the worst Star Trek movie?
Star Trek 5.
So fucking pissed right now. Star Trek 1. That's just I have an argument that I can have some fun with this.
The first one or the 2009 one?
The motion picture.
Okay.
I have an argument that it's gonna take a risk. Let's do it.
Okay. Here goes nothing. Jeremy, you got 20 seconds whenever you're ready.
Star Trek 5 was coming off the success of Star Trek 4: The Voyage Home. It had so much momentum. William Shatner was directing it. It ended up being a complete clusterfuck. It's only known for one line. What is God in a spaceship? It was absolutely just this terrible plot, terrible stories. All these characters are wasted. They have no point whatsoever. It literally sends everything into a big old speed bump, and it never recovers. Even Star Trek 6, it's not able to recover.
Okay, and Henry, 20 seconds whenever you are ready.
Okay. All right, so when you think of Star Trek, you think of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. So the fact that the first one isn't considered one of the best. When you think of Star Wars, you think of A New Hope or Empire. It's back there. It's neck and neck. Whereas the first one is nowhere near Wrath of Khan. It's not considered one of the best. It's not even considered a good movie. It only has a 40% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, whereas 2 has 88. So the source material that's the only reason that it was able to have more movies. So it's not banked on the first one being good.
All right, Jeremy, you have another 10 seconds whenever you are ready.
You said your movie has 40% approval rating. My movie has an ungodly 15%. And William Shatner literally apologized for making that movie. When you make Shatner apologize, you know you've screwed up.
All right, and that is time. So good timing on your part, Jeremy. Henry, 10 seconds whenever you are ready.
Which movie did he say?
He said 5.
Okay. All right, so the first one, the only reason that the franchise was able to continue because it has the source material. The fifth one is just a movie. He took a chance, and you got to respect it. He did what he could. It didn't work, but you still have more movies on the end. The only reason that the first one it's overshadowed. It's not nowhere the best.
Okay, I'm gonna I want Subrath's intake again. Just give me your thoughts, please.
I think for me this goes to Jeremy.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one. I think just Jeremy made the better argument. I like what he said about Shatner apologizing for making this movie, and yeah, I think he just had the better argument.
I mean, I've only seen one Star Trek movie. I knew I wasn't gonna win that. I didn't know. I was so pissed you even asked that. Yeah, I knew I was gonna lose that. So I mean, that's fine.
I didn't make these questions.
Yeah, it's whatever.
So.
Oh, great! Now I don't feel good that I won that argument.
Yeah, you won it by default. But yeah, good job. You argued good. I had nothing to argue for or against you. I have no idea. I've only seen Star Trek 09, so I didn't even have a plot, nothing. So I tried my best, saying it just wasn't it wasn't as good as the second one. I tried.
So does that mean that approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes is accurate? Is it 40%?
I have no idea. I'll look it up right now.
Yeah, mine's 44%. Yours is 22. So I mean, they're both terrible movies.
Okay, cool. All right.
I just changed my movie. I'm so sorry.
All right. The second speed round question is: what is the best performance of 2017 so far?
Is it like just in general, or is it like Oscar talk?
Just in general.
Patrick Stewart, Logan.
Hugh Jackman, Logan.
Okay. I think we should change it to the best performance, Logan. All right, Jeremy, you said Patrick Stewart first, so you got 20 seconds whenever you are ready.
Patrick Stewart's performance is probably the performance that is going to rectify a Oscar nomination. Hugh Jackson's performance probably not so much. Without Patrick Stewart's performance in Logan, Hugh Jackson's performance is not as elevated for that performance. Only Patrick Stewart is able to get that performance out of Hugh Jackman as Logan, in that without his performance in Logan, it is absolutely irrelevant.
Okay. And Henry, whenever you are ready, 20 seconds.
All right. So Hugh Jackman as Logan is one of the greatest comic book performances of all time. The fact that the first one was bad, the second one was mediocre, the third one he's proven that he's so good in that character, and it proven that it's the best one of the trilogy. The fact that we watch movies like The Last Stand or X-Men Origin, they're terrible, it's because of Logan, and it was proven in Logan because Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is just so great. It's memorable. It's his story. No one takes it away from him.
Okay. All right. Oh, my bad. Yeah, whenever you're good, I'm sorry.
Hugh Jackson's performance is good. I don't think it's great. Patrick Stewart's performance is not only the best performance of the year, I think it's the best performance of his career by far. It has put him on the map as far as best actors in the world today.
Okay. Henry, 10 seconds whenever you're good.
Patrick Stewart is just a bumbling guy with dementia. It feels like he just swears randomly. It's not that great. Hugh Jackman, it's his story. No one takes it away from him. You think of Logan for Logan, and it's so emotional at the end because of how great that character is and how good he is in that movie.
Time. All right, I'm gonna once again give it to Subrath to see what his thoughts are.
I think for me, this is very good because this is basically two characters from the same movie, which they basically both of them give really good performance. But to see who gave a better argument. I think Jeremy has this one.
All right. This one is a hard one because it was pretty much even.
It was very close. It's very even.
It was pretty much even. I'm trying to just. I think Henry at the very end won it for me because he said that he explained that without Logan being in the movie, it just wasn't as. He did mention in that the other movies where that had Wolverine in it that weren't great. The performances weren't that good, but when his performance was top notch in this one, and it resulted in the movie being top notch, and because of that, I will give the point to end the win to Henry.
Of course, the movie's going to be better if he's not in it because the movie's called Logan.
Hey, that's why you picked the wrong character, bud.
Oh, come on, man. I got beat by the guy whose 50% of his performance was "Ah!" Come on, man.
And you lost because you picked a character. Fuck you, Logan. Like that's not Charles Xavier.
All right, no, but honestly, this was great. I'm gonna talk to Henry first. How you feeling, dude?
I feel good. I got the win. I proved that I still got it. I'm kind of bummed out that I lost that James Franco question. I hope people comment below. Let us know who you guys thought won that, because Jeremy did great by everything. But the reason I felt like I disputed your reasoning for picking him for that one, so I'm a little bummed out about that one. I know that whoever wrote these questions knew that I've never seen a Star Trek movie, so that's why they made it the first one, so I wouldn't win on a 4-1 because they knew that was a possibility. So I'm bummed out for that, but it's all right. He did great. Jeremy, if you would have faced anyone but me, you probably would have knocked him out. You made me sweat. If I'm not just babbling like an idiot because I'm hungover. I'm babbling because I was nervous. You had me on the ropes, and I'm a formidable opponent. If I ever do something to where I form a faction in this, I would definitely want you to be on there because you impressed me. I thought I was going to destroy you, and the score I beat you pretty good, but I thought I was going to destroy you, and you made me sweat. So congratulations, you did a good job. All
right, and Jeremy, how you feeling, dude?
I feel like I got somewhat gypped by a fellow Hateful Great member, but that's beside the point. But
don't even.
Yeah, in all seriousness, I know you guys brought it up. But in all seriousness, it was a lot of fun. I know I had my work cut out for me because I know Henry has a vast more movie knowledge than myself, so I knew I had to bring everything that I had. Wasn't quite good enough. I knew I brought all the arguments that I possibly could. I'm actually kind of shocked that I won some of those arguments personally.
Thank you.
I'm kind of shocked that I won with Planet of the Apes. But I'm kind of bummed that I lost on Bryan Singer because I felt that every time I bring the passion on something, I always end up losing. So I guess I just need to be a monodrone every time I talk about a movie that I hate. So lesson learned. So hope to come back better than ever next time.
All right, Henry, where can we find you?
As everybody knows, there will be trivia. We're starting up the team tournament real soon. We got the snowball event coming out probably before this. Depends on when this gets posted. So you'll go check that out. And most of you guys are already involved in that, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Jeremy, I hope you can bring the trivia knowledge because you couldn't bring it with the debating. No, I'm just having fun. I had a lot of fun, and yeah. So there will be trivia on Facebook and Dialing for Movies on YouTube.
Yeah, no, the snowball event is going to be a great one. I was there for the drunk match, and you're in for a doozy.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, Jeremy. Jeremy, where can we find you at?
You can find me on Twitter at WWEJTH1. You can find my YouTube channel, JTH, simple as that. Do all the Schmodown reactions and everything related to the Schmodown. Saw me on Worldwide Movie Trivia not too long ago. Got my ass kicked by David Carlson. So I'm just, grateful. I always get my ass kicked. I'm like the comedy jobber everywhere. So always have fun losing, but most importantly, always have fun having a good time. So it's been a pleasure being on here.
All right, and to Sue Breath, where can we find you?
You can find me roaming around the Facebook page. That's it.
Okay, keeping it simple. You could find me in various places. There will be trivia, worldwide movie trivia. Here, obviously. You could also find me at my personal YouTube channel, youtube.com/Andrew Hayes. You could follow me on Twitter and/or Instagram at Big Kim Hayes. Please comment and like this video. Tell me how bad I am at hosting, and we'll catch you guys on the Battleground.
Great closing, bud.